many proofs and that this process, the good Catholics, the traditional Catholics, was simply despised and not listened to. We have many proofs of this, and there were only a selective method to hear those who are promoting the agenda of changing and undermining the Catholic faith and discipline of the Church. These are, it's proven. So many people told me in several dioceses and priests, they were invited, but their contribution was not taken into account in no way.
Your Excellency, with only 1% or less of baptized Catholics even participating in this process, does it really speak of the will of the people of God? I mean, does this even reflect where they're hoping to, if you will, listen to the Spirit? Or is this basically a rigged game from the beginning? Manipulated, maybe, is the better term.
It is the right term, as you mentioned, a manipulation, and in the hands of those who occupy high-ranking posts in the Church, the churchmen, to push on their own ideological agenda. But the Church is not a parliament and democratic methods. This is not given by God. The Church has a hierarchical structure, and the first mission of the Church is to teach, not to listen and to ask opinions. This our Lord said to the apostles, go and teach, and not go and listen opinions. This is never Catholic. This is worldly. And therefore we have to return to the Church, the Pope and the bishops, to teach the same faith as the apostles transmitted, and all the saints and the popes in the past 2 million years, 2,000 years, transmitted us unchangingly.
Bishop, what are you hearing from your fellow bishops about this upcoming synod? I'm interested to know, have you reached out to them? Are they pleased with the process as it's moving through Rome?
Many bishops whom I met are concerned about all these methods and these processes, fearing that there is already a pre-established agenda in Rome, and this process is only a tool to cover up a pre-established agenda, and therefore it is very, we have to be very concerned about all these methods.
2 weeks ago, I sat down with former head of the CDF, Cardinal Gerhard Müller. I'm sure you read those comments. They made headlines around the world. These were his thoughts on this synodal process. Listen. As someone who has dedicated his life to protecting this doctrine and extending it, what must you think as you watch a system being created where all of that doctrine seems to be up for grabs, Your Eminence?
The basis of the Church is the Word of God, is a revelation, and not our strange reflections about this and these things. This is a system of self-revelation, and is the occupation of the Catholic Church is a hostile takeover of the Church of Jesus Christ, which is a column of the truth, of the revealed truth.
Your Eminence, your thoughts. I mean, is this synod a hostile takeover of the Church, or as Cardinal Müller puts it, a self-revelation?
I'm completely agreeing with Cardinal Müller. It is really a self-revelation, so this is a temptation of the current churchmen in the Church in the Vatican with the tool of the synodality to present a new self-revelation adapted to the tastes of this modern world, of the unbelieving world. And I'm also agreeing completely with the expression of a hostile takeover of the Church by those people who lost probably their faith, or who want to work for an agenda to undermine further the Catholic truth.
Yeah, well, look, we have to step back for a moment and look. The organizers of this can't even agree on a definition of what synodality is. I mean, they say it's accompaniment and walking into the future and praying together and listening for the Holy Spirit. But we have to say, for the record, this was the dream of Cardinal Martini, the sort of left-wing radical Jesuit who had this idea of a new way of making decisions with everybody coming around the table rather than revealed truth moving through the hierarchy. Is that what we're seeing here, the revelation of Cardinal Martini?
I think yes. And we have some examples from history already. I would mention the Arian crisis in the 4th century, where there were continuous synods, and each synod produced documents which were undermining the revealed dogma and proclaimed dogma of the Council of Nicaea, of the consubstantiality of the Son of God, his divinity, and this was already done in a time where the church was taken over in the 4th century by semi or heretical bishops with the help of the government of those times, of the Arian emperors. And therefore, St. Gregory of Nazianzus wrote in those times, he decided in future never to participate at a synod of bishops, because they only brought ambiguity and confusion. This is the words of a doctor of the church, St. Gregory of Nazianzus. And we had another fake synod attempt in the 18th century, the so-called Synod of Pistoia in Italy, where the Bishop of Pistoia and the clergy attempted to change the doctrine of the church and the discipline of the church, the liturgy, in a Protestant-styled manner. And some of these decisions of the so-called Synod of Pistoia appeared again during the Second Vatican Council and after, and now in our days. And the Pope of those times, Pope Pius VI, condemned solemnly the propositions of this so-called Synod of Pistoia, and saying that a synod is not for the aim to confuse doctrine, but the glory of a synod in the Catholic Church is to defend and to proclaim with the greatest clarity the unchanging doctrine of the faith. These are the words of Pius VI in his document Auctorem Fidei, and these words are valid today also.
Bishop, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because the difference between even those heretical synods and the real thing is it was confined to bishops, ordained people who were trained in the faith and at least on the surface understood the doctrine. Now you're welcoming in people who are not baptized, not catechized. Anybody can come in, and not only are they welcome to come into the church, they're now being welcomed to opine and suggest changes to doctrine. Yes?
This is completely contrary to the entire history of the church and to the nature of the church. I repeat, Jesus Christ did not say to the apostles, go and listen to the pagans, to the Gnostics, to the Buddhists, and this is a perversion of the nature of the Catholic Church, and we have to reject such things.
Give me a sense of what you're hearing about Cardinal Mueller's critiques. I mean, he talked about the nature of this process and how it's flawed. He also talked about the limits of papal power, and that, you know, the Pope is there to be the vicar of Christ. He doesn't have the power of Christ.
exactly the Pope is, as his title says, Vicarius Christi. He is not Vicarius Dei, and he is not the successor of Jesus Christ. He is the successor of Peter, and his title is Servus Servorum Dei, the servant of the servants of God. And so this is, as Christ said to St. Peter, you, once you were converted, strengthen your brethren in faith. So this is the main task of the Pope, to strengthen. Strengthen means to protect the integrity of the faith and to explain and the faith in clarity and defend this. This is his task. But today, Pope Francis, unfortunately, is doing things and speaking and doing statements which is the contrary of strengthening the faith. It is confusing the faith, diluting the faith in a vagueness, and this is contrary to the mission of a Pope and to the nature of the Holy Catholic Church.
Well, I mean, the Pope certainly has a heavy burden as one looks at what they're contemplating in this synod, because as you say, it's his responsibility to bring clarity out of this and correct even those who are very close to him and maybe his very closest collaborators. So we'll see what happens in the days ahead. But I want to move on to your book. Pope Francis released his motu proprio, Guardians of the Tradition, placing restrictions on the celebration of the traditional Latin Mass worldwide. And we're now seeing its implementation, certainly throughout the United States and Europe. You've been speaking on your book tour for your book, The Catholic Mass. You're seeing firsthand how those restrictions are affecting parishes and parishioners. Why do you think Guardians of the Tradition was written? And what do you make of the onerous way in which these restrictions are being placed on that traditional Mass?
I think we have to be very honest. The motivation is ever more clear, was to simply destroy the traditional Catholic Mass. And this is ever more evident with all these restrictions. And this is a process of discrimination and really persecution of a venerable, millennium-old, sanctified prayer of the Holy Church, of so many saints and popes. It is a great injustice against so many faithful who now already grew up in this liturgy since Pope John Paul II opened this in '88. We have already a generation grown up, and now they are treated with these measures as second-class Catholics. This is a discrimination in a time where all the others, even pagans and Pachamama cult, is introduced in Rome and tolerated. This will go down in the Church as a huge injustice, as a hypocrisy, and a great offense against the simple faithful.
Bishop Schneider, I am struck, and no one's furnished me with a good answer for this, but we keep hearing Rome at the moment is finalizing, making good on the promises of Vatican II. But I thought, and maybe I'm simplistic in the way I'm thinking about this, but I thought that there was a train of popes and a train of churchmen who were coming to the full realization of what Vatican II meant, and that includes John Paul II and Benedict XVI, who allowed the extraordinary form and the ordinary form, the old rite and the new rite, to live side by side, and that seemed to be working very well. What happens when you break or try to erase what 35 years of pontiffs created, and then say, oh no, here's the real Vatican II, this is really what was meant? Doesn't that disrupt the faithful?
Of course, this is confusing and this is injustice, but maybe the reasons are also in some texts of the Vatican II because there are some ambiguous expressions, so you can interpret them in both sides.
There was a controversial appointment made this week at the Pontifical Academy for Life that I'd like your reaction to. Now, this is in the Vatican. Pro-abortion atheist economist Mariana Mazzucato, a member of the World Economic Forum, was named to the post by Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia. Now, she will serve a 5-year term as a member of the Academy for Life, remember. Pope Francis has praised her work in economics as not ideological. But Mazzucato regularly comments on and shares posts being supportive of legalized abortion. Your Excellency, what do you make of this appointment? Someone publicly announcing their hostility toward the teachings of the Catholic Church, now sitting on the Pontifical Academy for Life.
Well, we have to say honestly, it is a tragedy and a shame. First, we have to in my opinion, we have to have pity with this lady, Mariana, with her soul, when she is promoting, supporting abortion, the murdering of unborn children, and disbelief. We have to have pity with her soul. She can lose her soul for all eternity. And then she is now with this appointment, in some way, she was rewarded for these her actions, de facto, and this appointment is a huge hypocrisy on the side of the Holy See, and an offense to all faithful Catholics who are working and fighting for the defense of the unborn life and for the truth of the Holy Scripture and the revelation of God. We have to state this and to lament this very much.
Bishop Schneider, the Archbishop Paglia, who's the head of this Academy for Life, he claims that this is part of the fruitful dialogue that needs to go on between, I guess, those who embrace church teaching and people who reject it. But is the Academy for Life the place to do that?
Not. It is contradictory. This is misuse of the mission and of the word Academy for Life. And so we can, under this pretext, invite any, let us say, person who is promoting evil. So why then not to invite a racist who is promoting racism? Well, we can invite him also. We have to listen to him, and he can be member of the Pontifical Academy for Life, a racist. It's also an issue for life, let us say.
No, it's maddening. It's a very odd appointment, to say the least. I want to talk about your book, The Catholic Mass. You go through, you really lay out here steps people can take to, in the midst of this liturgical upheaval. Share a few of those and why you decided to write this book now.
Yes. The cover image of the book is a photo taken from, after the Second World War, from a cathedral in Germany, which was bombed and half destroyed. And in the midst of the ruins, the main altar is still remained, and there is celebrated a so-called solemn high mass with priest, deacon, subdeacon, and they all turned towards the Lord in the midst of the ruins. They are celebrating God, centered upon Christ. But this is a very impressive picture of the situation of the Church in our day, in the last decades. We are living in the midst of the ruins, spiritual ruins, liturgical ruins. The life of the Church overwhelmingly is a chaos, a ruin. But in midst of this situation, we have not to despair. We have to calmly continue undisturbed, determined to give God the honor and to put Christ at the center in the liturgy, to turn again towards Him, towards the celebrating the Mass, towards the Lord, and to restore the venerable, millennium-old holy rite of the Mass of the Saints, they say the traditional Latin Mass, and These are the steps to turning to the Lord, to restore the centrality of Jesus Christ in our liturgical celebrations, in our churches, to give him again the visible center.
Bishop Schneider, thank you so much for being here. The Catholic Mass, Steps to Restore the Centrality of God in the Liturgy, by Bishop Athanasius Schneider, available now in bookstores everywhere and online, including EWTN's catalog. Thank you, Bishop.
You are welcome. God bless you.